There's all this information out there. What do I actually need to do? I think there's so many amazing health and wellness podcasts out there, but so many of them leave people more confused than when they started. So our mission is to break it down into layman's terms and make it easy for you to have real takeaways.
Welcome to You're Allowed to Hate Your Husband, a modern day love story. I am Remy Stern. I'm a relationship coach, and we are going to talk all things relationships, from being single to dating to being engaged, married. Who you marry is the most important decision you will ever make.
If you're looking for a wife, which is a beautiful thing to do, the best thing to do is to choose wisely.
If you're thinking, what am I doing wrong? Everybody else has it right. Then you are in the right place, because trust me, nobody knows what they're doing. I'm so excited. Please hop right in, listen to this episode, listen to this series, and we are so excited that you are joining us here. Welcome back to You're Allowed to Hate Your Husband. In today's episode, we have Chloe, the CEO and co-founder of the Lanby, talking about how to live your healthiest, happiest, longest life. And we talk about how to find your personal recipe for success so you can really live your best life. So hop in, listen to this episode. She is brilliant. There's so much awesome information here, and I cannot wait for you guys to listen. Welcome back. We are so excited to have Chloe here. Chloe, can you just introduce yourself? Tell everybody kind of who you are, what you do. It's super, super cool stuff. We're very excited.
So, Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. Well, thank you guys so much for having me. So background on me, I am currently the co-founder and CEO of the Lanby, which is a primary care members club in New York. Before that, I was a healthcare consultant, bioengineer by background. What actually got me into the Lanby was my personal journey, having navigated breast cancer. I was 23 years old when I was diagnosed, and it taught me a lot about healthcare, but from a very different perspective as a patient, right? So it was the first time that I was seeing what navigating healthcare looked like as someone who needed to see a ton of specialists, think about the rest of my longevity, think about wellness, think about prevention, more so than the immediate decision around what treatment do I do. It was the thing that bogged me down and ultimately led me down the rabbit hole of launching the Lanby was there was so little emphasis on prevention. And that's, I think, the big problem within healthcare today.
That's really incredible. And I do find that challenges that we go through end up being such a big part of our purpose and to go help other people through it. So totally. I think it is unbelievable. And that preventative side of health, you're right, is something that we do not do enough. And Jonathan and I, we talk about it and we learn about it a lot, but I think it's important to have one place to go to. It seems so fragmented.
Yeah, that's, I think, the problem with healthcare, and also now increasingly so the wellness industry. Every vertical is so siloed, and consumers, and this is the trend of health and wellness, it's this consumerization of care. We are having to basically compartmentalize our efforts based on whichever influencer or whichever doctor we're going to for that specific thing, but there's no coordination across those verticals. And so ultimately you're not really moving the needle in your health. You're not seeing what's actually making an impact on your health. You're not tracking the progress. And when things start to spiral out of control, you have no sense of what's contributing to that. You can't tie it back to whatever effort is ultimately the issue, right? You can't have that root cause approach because you're doing all these things in silo.
100%. And it's hard because it's one of those things that thank God, when your health is good, you don't think about it. And the preventative side of it. And I feel as you age, you start to think, and when you have a daughter, you're thinking I want to be here for a really, 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 God willing, a million times, long time. And not only that, but I want to feel good for a really long time. I threw out my back 2 weeks ago, and I'm young. I feel so silly that I threw out my back, but it affects all aspects of your life. So this preventative health, it's it's hard to think that way. You went through an experience where you were forced to, one, probably appreciate health, to learn about it, to focus on it.
Totally.
And it's really hard, but to focus on the preventative side, like, how do you recommend to people to get into that mindset? Like, what is that switch?
Well, there's definitely a learning curve, right? Like, most people today have so much on their plate, whether it's their work, their family, their relationships. We have over the past however many years learned that exercise is really important. We've started to learn that nutrition and food is really important. So we're starting to make habitual changes to incorporate better habits into our lifestyle. But I think it's you start to be more preventative the more you know the impact of your decisions. We're even starting to now realize but alcohol is becoming more of a topic of conversation.
Oh my
gosh.
gosh.
Right?
Oh my God.
Oh my God. Please tell us what to do.
Yeah, let's
because
talk about that.
It's our question every
First of all, if
is
I
there,
were
is it
blind-
even a question? Like, what's the
No,
question?
It's such a question.
I'll
That's
tell you
the
the
thing.
question.
This is a funny topic.
I have so much fun when I drink and dance with my wife.
Yeah.
And we go out and we let loose. And it's such a fun night.
And
It
how
really
often are
is.
you doing that though?
The problem is the next day, and let's just say the 72 hours that follow a heavy drinking evening are very painful.
Mhm.
And not only that,
With
but I'll
kids, too,
feel
as
like
you know.
I was poisoned. Why? Because I'm poisoning myself. And I
Totally.
totally am turned off for alcohol. And I'm not even talking about, like, well, I'm going to have one drink 4 or 5 nights a week, because there's always a fun thing that we're doing 4 or 5 nights a week of some sort, whether it's dinner or a backgammon game or live music. Like, I can't make an excuse 5 nights a week because I would be hungover all week long. So we have so much fun when we drink, but I'm just so turned off with how I feel after I drink.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like I'm going out tomorrow night for my friend's birthday. I don't want to have a sip of alcohol. And my wife is already peer pressuring me. She's like,
I'm not.
you're going to have 1 to 2 drinks. And I know after 2 drinks, I'm going to have 5.
No, but
So-
don't have 5. Just have 1 to 2. So what I found in my life right now is, and it's such a debate for us. Like, obviously it's not good for you, but we're also here to live an enjoyable, fun, happy life. And I love chocolate cake, and I love pizza, and I love salads, and I love working out, and I love sleeping. Like, I feel very balanced. Obviously we used to drink a lot more than we do now. 1 to 2 drinks for me is my happy zone. And at the end of 2 drinks, if I order next one, then I know I'm not going to feel great the next day. But like, is it a yes or a no? We question it every day. Like, do we cut it out cold turkey for good?
I think my happy zone is either 0 or 10. I don't like 1 through 9. I really don't. 1 through 9 is
So
like a waste.
there's-
Either go 0 or go all in.
Honestly, I think that every person has their own approach when it comes to
Sure.
alcohol. And so the fact that you feel that way, like, great, keep doing what you're doing. And the fact that you feel that way, keep doing what you're doing. I think the way that the Lanby thinks about it is like, let's meet you where you're at. Let's figure out what your specific like happy place is, and let's work around that. Let's try to figure out specific tips that we can minimize the impact of alcohol when you're doing it in that way, right? So for you, for example, when you want to have those 10 drinks.
If I want to, I will.
So I definitely would
Oh, he does.
But
the
it's not
amount-
often. It's
No,
once
no,
a-
no.
Exactly.
He does.
Once a
he
week,
does.
once a month. I don't know, twice a
So
month.
let's try to make it once a month.
10 times a month.
Okay. But I do think that like moderation is the answer, right? So if we can, instead of doing 10 drinks, maybe do 3 drinks, maybe do 4
Right.
drinks. And I also think it's a matter of like replenishing the hydration around when you're doing that. So making sure that the day before you're drinking a lot of electrolytes.
Electrolytes. How do I get electrolytes?
So we love this brand called Element, LMNT. And the electrolytes taste delicious. There's no added sugar. So you're not, like, a lot of electrolytes have a ton of sugar in them. You don't need the sugar in order to get the hydration unless you're sweating a ton, which is not the
day of,
situation.
The day before?
The day before.
Okay.
And also the day after. So like make sure that
Okay.
you're
But not the day of.
No, you could take it no. I'm saying take it the day of and the day after.
Ah.
But electrolytes generally you can take every day. Like
Okay.
there's no issue with taking electrolytes
And what does the
every day.
Lanby, generally speaking, think about alcohol?
It's in moderation, right? Like I think again,
Not
if you can, it's definitely a toxin. It's definitely not great,
Okay.
right? Like there's no argument that alcohol is good for you. but we recognize,
Well, it does make you happy, and
It does make you happy.
happiness
Good
does
times.
have benefits.
yes, but my argument to that would be there are so many other ways to fill up your tank. And so why not choose the things in your tank that are good for you and good for your happiness? Again, I will also caveat that with saying, I do believe that 1 to 2 drinks a week is absolutely fine.
Do you drink? Can I ask?
I do. And I
Okay.
love alcohol.
What's
I
your
love the
drink of
taste of
preference?
alcohol. My drink of preference is probably a dirty martini. It's funny because when
Same.
Do you make that at home?
no, I
Yeah.
don't. So it's like my treat when we go out for dinner. But it's funny because we recorded a podcast recently for the Lanby, and I was asking our wellness advisor, given all we know about, coupling bad foods with good foods, whether it's like protein, fat with your carb, or like anything with sugar to be able to blunt the spike of sugar. A dirty martini, I was joking, like the fact that you have some olive juice
Yes.
in there, maybe there's some like healthy fats and protein that will blunt
What'd
the
she
spike.
say? Because I love a
She
dirty martini.
obviously was like, no, that's complete baloney. But I will say that like I wore a continuous glucose monitor for, the span of a month to really understand the impact of alcohol.
Okay, tell us about that.
And one of the things that I realized is that tequila, because I love tequila and I love gin. I like
too.
hard alcohol.
On the rocks?
On the
Tequila
rocks.
on the rocks?
Yeah,
Okay.
I love. I don't like wine anymore because it makes me feel like really crappy.
Me too. My wife loves wine.
No. We had a wine night with the podcast, and the next day was like the worst day ever. It was so
Okay.
painful.
Yeah, I think wine, especially as you get older, like I just feel so much, I don't know, not great the night of and the next day.
Right.
So I definitely choose the harder alcohol options. But when it comes to tequila specifically, your blood sugar actually drops when you're drinking,
Good or bad?
which is when it comes to like food, it's good because that means that, you don't have circulating blood sugar. So a lot of people, when they see that, they're like, oh, well, now I can have chocolate cake because I'm starting at a lower baseline. So I can get to 110 by eating this chocolate cake, and that's not a big deal. The problem is that it drops, but then it'll spike
The next day or when?
throughout, like
Okay.
throughout the night. Like normally you want your blood sugar to be at around, let's say like 80 to 90 overnight. You'll see that when you drink alcohol overnight, your blood sugar is just doing a little bit of a yo-yo situation.
that why
That sounds fun. Yolanda, please bring 3 tequila on the rocks ASAP.
Wait, is this why Jonathan always has late night food? Because he when
That-
he drinks, he cannot for the life of him not have
Exactly.
pizza.
So this, exactly.
It's not me, honey. It's not
alcohol.
me.
Exactly.
No,
You
no,
have
no,
these
it's not my fault.
cravings. You have these cravings. And then the same thing
Yeah.
happens the following day, right? Like the day after,
yes.
you're like, oh, I just want a greasy egg sandwich.
Yes.
Oh, that sounds
yes.
great.
Oh,
Yes.
right? It's so
Oh,
good.
Jonathan's
I love
hungry.
that.
Don't talk about
You
food.
already feel like junk, so you might as well enjoy
and
have
indulge
more
that.
junk.
Yeah.
So what is your advice in regards to alcohol? If you're going to have it as part of your life and you do want to enjoy it, like you don't want to be like a perfect
So
person.
typically my routine when I have alcohol is the day of, like today, I know tonight I'm going to drink alcohol. I'll have electrolytes the day of. That night, I'll make sure that I have some food in my system before I have alcohol to just like blunt the effects, even though
Smart.
they haven't
Oh,
necessarily
very
shown
smart.
that makes a huge difference.
I
but
like
in
it
my
on
head,
empty
it
stomach.
does.
If
I
you
know.
drink on a full stomach as
I
opposed
don't
to
Not
an
a
empty
full
stomach,
stomach,
there's
but
a
just
big
like-
difference in the way you feel the next day, I think.
Really?
Yeah. And then the night before I go to sleep, I drink this like liver support. So there's like, you can take a supplement, you could take a drink, but it has a combination of milk thistle, turmeric, and that helps support your liver, which obviously is where you're detoxifying the alcohol. And then the next day, I like am very, very mindful of what I'm eating because I know that the yo-yoing of my blood sugar is that much more sensitive. Like anything that I eat the day after I drink alcohol is going to spike me in a way that if I hadn't had alcohol, it wouldn't.
Interesting.
Tonight,
So-
are you going to have that liver shot?
Yeah, I have it in my fridge.
Every time you drink, you go home and have the
Yeah,
liver
and
shot.
it's funny because I've gotten my husband into it, and you're supposed to have literally a shot of it,
He takes
and
pills.
he takes like literally a full cup's worth because it's actually
tastes
kind of
good.
delicious.
What? How do you make it? Where do you buy it? What is it?
There's this company called Dose. They have one bottle for liver support. They have another one for I don't even know what the other ones are because I got targeted for the liver one and I was like, great.
On Instagram?
On Instagram, yeah. And I
And you
looked
like
at the
it, though.
ingredients and the ingredients are really good. Like there's no
Dose.
concern with it. But you can also buy a supplement for milk thistle and that's been shown to help with detox support.
Because what I find, it's the next day that's the problem. And,
Hydration is the most important thing.
hydration.
Have you read Peter Attia's Outlive?
Of course.
I like that book.
Yeah.
Um,
There's a lot in there.
What are your thoughts on the author and his
I
ways?
think he is one of the leaders of the longevity movement. I think so much of what we talk about today is inspired by him. And there's a lot that he preaches that, in an ideal world, we would all try to subscribe to. But I think that there's a lot of extremes in what he preaches. And, what post my cancer journey, I was someone who, if you told me to jump, I would say how high. Like I was willing and motivated to do whatever it took to minimize my risk of recurrence, my risk of disease. And I was doing all the things. And the problem today is that so many people are doing all the things and they're not having a clinician oversee it. And our health is then, it's going in directions that we didn't intend it to. Like, for example, for me, I was intermittent fasting. I cut out all carbs. I cut out alcohol. I cut out sugar. And I was mostly eating plants and some protein, fat. Like I was eating healthy by all standards. But when you eat so healthy, naturally you're going to lose weight. Naturally, your body is going to, especially when you're intermittent fasting as a woman, it's in a state of stress. These are not things that I was mindful of because I was just living my life. There were no signs that I was in a state of stress, right? Like in New York, we're all used to being in a state of stress.
Oh, really? I'm very relaxed over here.
Yes,
lo and behold.
Meanwhile, I'm like, I called myself a shaken up
my wife's
soda.
freaking out. She spends 4 weeks in New York. It's like, I got to go to the beach. I got to go to Santa. I got to go travel.
I
was like, honey, it's been 1 month. Let me just relax.
I love New York, but I hit a point that I go crazy and I'm at that point.
Right. So it's not only that
She's
New
at the
York
point
is
every month.
causing stress, but like all these other wellness efforts are in some instances doing more harm than good because it creates this health anxiety in us. And it puts a lot of stress on our bodies just physically because we're not getting as many calories as we should. Like it's really, really hard to get that many calories when you're plant-based, when you're also trying to be low carb, and when you're not indulging. Like you don't let yourself indulge anymore. And so had I had a doctor oversee me, I probably would have been doing blood work. I had all these incredible specialists. None of them did the level of comprehensive blood work that I should have had in order to diagnose that there was something wrong.
And what was wrong at this time?
At that point, it was, and it's still an issue, but like all of my hormones were depleted. My reproductive hormones, my thyroid hormones, my cortisol was out of whack. And that's a sign that your body's in a state of stress because cortisol being the stress hormone, when you overproduce that hormone, it blocks the production of all of your other hormones, being your reproductive hormones, your thyroid hormones. And so I stopped getting my period. Like and for men,
what does this look like in men? Because I feel like I hear a lot about it for women.
In men, there's actually less of a physical sign because men don't have a period. So they're not in this like cycle that indicates like, oh, something's wrong with your body. I actually thought when I lost my period that it had to do with being on chemo and no doctor was like, oh yeah, it's that, or oh yeah, no, it's not. So again, there was no real guidance and that's where primary care should step in. But with men, and what we're seeing so much today at the Lanby is that men in their 30s are deficient in testosterone. And it's not because they, are following the diet that I was, but it is because of stress.
Interesting.
We think and then they're not getting enough protein.
And what does it mean if a man's low in testosterone? Like they just don't feel as good?
Low energy, low performance, just general fatigue. And it could spiral into a few other things too. So, hormone health is like so central to everything.
Hormones are like the main thing we're looking
at. How do men get their testosterone levels up?
Jonathan's like, please tell me.
So there's obviously a few ways. There's like a 360 approach, and I'm not a clinician, so I don't want to be giving clinical advice. but mostly it starts with your diet and it starts with your like general state of mental health, like being
and the
able
Lanby
to.
can help with this.
Yeah. So that's sort of where we define primary care differently. We believe that primary care should serve as a first line of defense. So we're not just thinking about your healthcare from a clinical perspective. We're thinking about it from a lifestyle standpoint. What are you eating? How are you managing your stress? What are supplements that you might be taking? How can we look at your lab work and identify which supplements should be personalized to you, which ones you should be prioritizing?
So
Are
you
there
believe
additional
supplements-
diagnostics? We do believe in supplements. We don't think it should replace a healthy diet, but it's meant to supplement. It's meant to be complementary.
Can we talk about how long you've been around, how much it costs, and
Sure, yeah.
what a new client would have to do to get involved?
Yes. So we have been around since September of 2021. That's when we opened our doors. The cost of the membership, there's 2 tiers. We have our general membership, which is for patients that are 35 and older, and that's $6,000 a year. And then we have a lower tier, even though it's the exact same offering, but it's a different price point for patients under 35. Because our goal with the Lanby is to get more people to focus on prevention earlier on. Because the earlier you do it, the better the better habits you implement into your life, and the more likely you are to sustain those habits. So those are the membership options. With the membership, you get all-inclusive access, unlimited visits, ongoing care, specialist referrals, diagnostics, all the works. But we actually recently just launched this new offering that's a la carte. And the idea here was, we had a lot of people who gave us this feedback saying, like, I am not ready for a membership. I'm not ready to commit the time into investing in my health, into investing in all these like recommendations that you're going to be making. So how do I even know if this is a good fit for me? Well, the way to do that is by getting comprehensive lab work. So what we decided to do is offer access to our lab panels to be able to give people that insight into how they're doing, right? Like you, for example, are saying, how do I know if my testosterone levels are normal? Obviously,
You could test that?
yeah. So our, yeah.
You just got a
Can we
new
bet
client.
on whether I'm high or low or medium?
I'm not going to put my bet in.
I don't.
You think I'm high?
I was going to say you're high.
Right, of course.
So yeah,
You go to sleep before me.
I-
Hours.
Yeah, but you're exhausted when you wake up.
I got to watch the West Coast basketball game, and I got to get up at 6:30. So yeah, I'm a little tired. but
You're
it's okay.
exhausted.
How many hours of sleep do you get?
Not enough. I'd say realistically 6.5. 6 to 6.5.
What do you say?
It should be
I
7
think the
to
minimum,
8.
yeah, the minimum should be 7.
I agree.
But it's also a matter of how much quality sleep you're getting.
Sure.
So the
So
blood.
how much does that cost? This
So the lab work, basically
this
what
a la
we're
carte
doing is
appetizer.
we provide access to the lab panel, and then we have a 45-minute consultation with you to go through your lab results, help you understand what they mean and what our recommendations are based on those results.
Does that cover the LP?
LP little a, ApoB, all that good
Are those
stuff.
important
These are all
levels?
Peter
Those
Tia.
are, yeah, no, they're all very important. And it's really, really hard to get a doctor that's going to include that in your lab panel, partly because they don't know how to analyze them, partly because insurance won't reimburse them. So we've created
don't care
as
as much
much
as you.
price transparency as possible around what insurance will or will not cover, what are your out-of-pocket options, how can we tailor the lab panel to what you specifically need to prioritize and what you're willing to spend. But most importantly, it's about how do we analyze these results alongside you? Because most of the time when people do lab work, they're left with these values that they do not know how to interpret. They're
Sure.
also left looking at these ranges that these labs tout as average that are really not average because you're comparing yourself to the average of the US, right? Like you do not want to be comparing yourself to an average that you don't subscribe to, right? Like you want to look at what's optimal. And so even though you're by LabCorp standards normal, you're actually not necessarily optimal. And so if you're trying to be really focused on how do you live the longest, healthiest, most, fruitful, joyous life, it's about making sure that we get you to those ranges that are optimal.
I like it a lot. How much does that cost?
So it's $500.
That's great.
That
Easy.
sounds
Let's
totally
go. We'll see you next
doable.
week. So the point of this, I know this is going to sound like such an elementary school question. And also it's like semi very obvious, but at the same time, maybe not. the point of it is to live a healthy, long, fruitful life.
Joyous
Health span,
life.
not lifespan. It's not a number of how many years you live to. It's what you're capable of doing during those 80s and 90s, or
exactly. And
like, can you feed yourself? Can you walk? Can you
being able to enjoy those years, right? Like if you're someone who loves walking, being able to walk. If you're someone who enjoys swimming, being able to swim, picking up your kids from school, like being able to lift them up.
Can I ask, like, because I love this and I agree. And I know that like the big picture, the long time, and health is wealth, done and done times a million. Do you see immediate effects in people's lives now? Like their stress level and their like 100%. Happiness, does it go up? Does their joy go up? Like how does this type of stuff actually affect people right now? Because a huge thing that we focus on is like people really loving their lives, feeling good, living your best life. Like this is all about living your best life, in relationships, in your health, in all aspects of your life. So how does it affect someone's life in the here and now? Yeah.
So I think the reason why most people join the Lanby is because they're so overwhelmed by what's out there. Like they know that there's so much more potential, but they don't know where to start. And they honestly don't have time to figure it out. They don't have time to read Outlive and listen to all these podcasts and compare that to what their lab values are and, do research as to which doctors are going to be the best and which also take their insurance. So they just want that headache taken off their plate. And what we do is we try to help you prioritize. And we also, with that, sift through the noise of like, okay, yes, there are all these options out there. Which ones are credible? Which ones are sign backed? And also, which ones are relevant for you? You have limited time, resources, energy, bandwidth. Where can we help you focus your efforts? And having that clarity and that peace of mind that we figure that out for you so that you can focus on actually just execution makes people feel so much more purpose oriented, right? Like that way, that yes, I'm following this diet because it makes sense for me and I'm tracking to see how my levels are responding accordingly.
So interesting.
You're an amazing teammate to have. Where are you located?
So our office is in Midtown, but 80% of our visits end up being done virtually. With COVID, people are much more receptive to virtual care. And it's not that we're imposing it. It's just much more convenient for people, whether they're working from home, whether they want to work from, not have to leave their office and like add the commute time in. So we try to make it as easy and accessible as possible. The only visit that we require to be done in person is that first visit because it's when we do your labs. We do body composition analysis. So we look at your muscle mass versus your visceral fat, which gives us a lot of indication around, again, going back to the protein conversation, do we need to look at muscle mass as a factor
I love this.
For, why you might be having low testosterone levels?
So, okay, this is unbelievable.
Or very high.
Or very high.
Or the most high out of all of the men in the world.
Yeah, compare me to Stallone, Schwarzenegger. Don't compare me to the average American.
Okay, so what we're saying here is that there's obviously no one size fits all. And I think that's probably the biggest issue with Instagram and influencers society is that like one person saying whole food, plant-based, one person saying red meat, protein. And what you're saying is you can come and like, what if for Remy, I actually do need a lot of protein because my body is built up X, Y, and Z, or maybe certain factors are in my life. And maybe at different times, like when you're pregnant, I'm sure it looks one way. When postpartum, it looks a different way. Breastfeeding, it looks a different way. Like also, what about movement? Like I'm very much, because I feel like I know health. I know you need 7 to 8 hours of sleep. I try to go to bed at 10 o'clock at night, wake up at 7. It doesn't happen. This is my
You're
dream.
very smart. There are people that, like I was 10 years ago, just like that can fall for the tricks.
Yeah, no, of course.
Manufacturers.
So I feel like I'm like quote unquote smart, right? I do my Pilates some days, I do my cardio other days. I move my body every single day. So sleep, I know how to eat properly and I know when I'm enjoying my food, but I might be wrong about what I need. Like I might not be actually listening to what my body actually needs. So you think that, and that there's no one size fits all. Like it really, you actually have to have the knowledge for yourself to feel good right now and to feel good in the future, right? So would you say that there's like any type of, this is the one thing we're going to prescribe to everyone, like this much sleep, this much protein, this much movement, do you have like one typical thing that goes for people, or it's really per person?
Great question. I think that if you go by the buckets, there's a lot of tips that apply to most people, right? Like going back to alcohol, it's try to limit your alcohol. Like that's true for anyone.
Yep.
If we talk about sleep, get 7 to 8 hours of sleep. Like that's good for everyone. Try to minimize your electronics at night so that you can really get that maximum quality sleep. Movement, you should be moving your body every single day. Do you need 30 minutes of cardio every single day? No, that's definitely not something that we would tell everyone to do. And I think that there's a lot out there when it comes to, the CDC recommends like 20 to 30 minutes of like high intensity exercise in order to improve your heart health. Like we generally say, as long as you're moving your body in some way and there's sweat, because sweat is a form of detoxification, we're happy. Even if that means that like on the days in which you can't go to the gym and sweat, you're doing some sauna or like you're doing a brisk walk.
Or
right?
Spicy jalapenos until you
Can I tell you a quick
schwitz it all
story?
out.
That's amazing.
No, you have to hear the story. So when Jonathan first met my family, we were in Colorado and Aspen skiing in the winter. And he's like,
you're bundled up and you go inside and you get to the cafeteria and you're cold, you're warming up. I ordered a burrito with
extra jalapenos.
And because the cook looked at me and said, okay, you want extra? I'll give you extra. And he like tripled or he just threw in the whole box. I started eating this thing in front of her parents and I'm like starting to like, I was like, this is really hot. And they're like, okay, stop complaining. Next thing you know, I'm literally schwitzing. I'm sweating all the
then the windows.
I'm not even halfway through my burrito. And there was a window open, so my hair started to like freeze because my hair was wet from sweating so much. So I had like these spikes. It was great.
And
great
then
workout.
So then he goes at the end, and my family is like a super active, healthy family, like very, very into this. And at the end, he goes, wow, what a good workout, as he's eating a spicy burrito.
A sweat is a sweat.
A sweat is a sweat.
Oh my God. Okay, so I guess she's agreeing with you. But this is what happens with Jonathan. He does ridiculous stuff, and then he's kind of right. So it's annoying, but it's...
I mean, listen, it doesn't replace movement, but there is like the benefit of the detoxification. Like some people after drinking alcohol, they do hot yoga, even though that's really not recommended because you're already so dehydrated to like sweat that out. And it's
right.
You need to make sure you're still drinking a lot of water if you're depleting in that way, but it is a good way of getting out the toxins.
Can I ask another movement question?
Yeah.
Because another thing that I'm seeing on Instagram a lot is the heavy lifting, like heavy weights specifically for women. For me, I love my Pilates and I love my Barry's boot camp and I love my runs in the park and I love my walks and I love my infrared sauna.
Sounds like you're doing a great job.
And hot yoga.
Yes,
I love these places.
You are doing a fabulous job.
And I love it. I couldn't work out because my back for 2 weeks and it was truly miserable. So I love it. Is there like, because you're saying sweat might be the most important part of it. Is there a workout regime that's like recommended for women, for men, or how does that work?
No. Honestly, no. I think that working out has to be something that gives you joy in order for you to sustain it long term. If you don't like working out, you won't do it.
So how does someone who doesn't typically like working
that's why you have to find the type of workout that you're willing to do and just do that. Like if you hate running, then don't force yourself to run. Like there are so many other ways to get movement in that you shouldn't make it a chore, right? Like the best way to be effective at implementing a new habit is finding joy in it. And so try to just literally find whatever it is that makes you happy, whether it's sculpting, whether it's Pilates, whether it's tennis, whether it's swimming, whatever it is, even if it's just a brisk walk.
Walk to work, walk back, whatever makes you happy. Because if you want to move every day,
that's the best part of living in New York, by the way.
Surround yourself with activities that bring you joy.
Walking in and of itself is movement. You know, if that's all you're doing, that's a lot.
You read about the blue zones?
Yes.
I like the blue zones.
Yeah, I mean, it's so true. They move, they eat well, they have good relationships.
Yeah. Okay, so going back to the question.
They're happy. They surround themselves with friends.
They're not stressed.
That they can smile and laugh with. Yeah.
So we have minimized alcohol. We have maximized sleep. We have move every day. I'm hearing some like happiness, no stress. Like how do we find joy in our day? Are you
Visit
meditating?
The Lanby and get some extra expert help.
But this, what is like you can take away like
Right.
step one.
Massage your husband morning
Self-care.
and night.
I think
These are
general
very important
self-care,
things.
like whatever that means for you. I don't think that meditation is something that everyone, I think everyone would benefit from it. But again, I'm not someone who meditates.
I can't do
sit
it either.
still.
I don't have time.
I do it. I love it.
I
wake
we
up
talked
very
about this,
early.
I remember. I can't sit still.
It
Like
hurts
I
my
need to be
head.
moving. But I find that working out is meditative. Like
Yes.
I find that I de-stress when I work out. If
Yes.
I'm in a
Both.
bad mood, it's because I haven't worked out.
True.
So
The three of us, we're like twins.
Exactly. Or just like take me out on a walk, right? Like I sometimes feel like I'm a little puppy. Like if I
Yes.
haven't gotten enough exercise,
Right.
I'm going to be grumpy.
Yes.
Get some fresh air.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we've got self-care, nutrition, I'm assuming is the next one of the everybody should look at.
I would say when it comes to nutrition, making sure that you're eating a good amount of vegetables and fruits, but thinking also about the blood sugar. And I think blood sugar is, the next sort of frontier of wearables, right? Like we all now have gotten used to the idea of an Oura Ring or a Whoop or a Garmin or Apple Watch. But really where you're going to see significant personalization is around a continuous glucose monitor. Because whereas, it's pretty obvious at this point, if you drink alcohol, the quality of your sleep is going to go down. Doesn't matter who you are. That's true. If you exercise, like you're going to see your heart rate go up, and you're going to see that your body is, getting to a certain level of, yes, like whatever. For the most part, the average person knows what they're going to get out of the things that the general wearable will tell you. But with a CGM, it's so different from one person to another. And I'll give you an example. Lentils. Lentils are a superfood, right? Like they have protein, they have good healthy carbs, they have a lot of other vitamins in them. But when I had a bowl of lentil soup, which growing up,
Love.
everyone tells me it's the healthiest thing you can have is a bowl of lentil
Love
soup for
lentil
lunch.
soup.
I do too.
Right? Like anytime my husband's not home, I'll make a bowl of lentil soup and I'll be like, I just had the healthiest meal. Little did I know that spiked my blood sugar just as much as a chocolate cake.
What?
You, everybody.
So me.
Oh.
My mother happened to be wearing a continuous glucose monitor at the same time that I was. We had the exact same lentil soup. My mom, I'm telling you, my mother, she does not eat the same health consciousness level that I do.
Okay.
Did not react, like flat blood sugar line.
Which is the norm, you or your mother?
So the thing is, there is no norm. Everyone has a different reaction to different foods. If you have a piece of potato, which has carbs in it, some people will see that they spike their blood sugar. Other people won't. If you have a piece of an apple, whatever it is, obviously things like, vegetables that don't have much carbs are not going to spike your blood sugar, but like things like a sweet potato, things that have carb content, it could spike you differently.
Will you wear it forever, or you just do it once in a while?
No, I'm currently not wearing it because I have an obsessive personality that like I didn't want to now get on a rabbit hole where every time I would eat something but it did teach me a lot around like what does spike me. And so how do I make sure that I can eat those things, but eat them mindfully, right?
How do you find one of these?
How do you eat it mindfully?
So
if
when
you
it
want
comes to
lentil soup.
lentils, right? Like I'll make sure that before I eat lentils, I eat protein that's a low carb protein. So not a plant-based protein. So whether it's chicken, whether it's fish. So I don't ever use lentils as my source of protein. It's a side.
Got it.
Interesting.
For me.
How do you do this? How do you get and how can you tell the blood?
So we prescribe it at the Lanby. You can get a prescription for it. You do need a doctor
glucose
that
monitor?
prescribes it, or you can go through some of the direct-to-consumer companies that are now selling them. Levels is one of them. Signos is another one, and they basically can write you. They send you sort of the
and you can read it yourself. Like you'll figure out.
Yeah, there's an app that shows you exactly how your blood sugar is doing. The question becomes like, okay, now what?
Yeah.
And so we get a lot of people who say,
Right.
I need help analyzing these results and changing things in order to mitigate that spike going forward. So that's where we can come in and provide you with that support.
Fun.
So it's really, this is your prescription for living your best life. Like each person needs their own. Again, does it change at different points in your life? Like for my lovely husband who's at a new stage, and like each person's at a new stage. He's very excited about health and figuring all this out. And let's say for me, if I, God willing, when the time is right, go into pregnancy and all of this, like, do you guys shift with the times in someone's life? Or
For sure, especially if someone's like going through a phase like they want to get pregnant and they really want to support their hormone health at that time and make sure that their body is as good it can be, the diet's going to be different than a man who's trying to reduce his body fat and really optimize his muscle mass, right? So I think that obviously we make different recommendations for men who are in their 60s and like their goals are very different. So we definitely meet people where they're at. And that's, again, why it's very important to not necessarily just take wellness information from social media, from even Outlive, right? Like Outlive is, and he says this in his book, this is not meant to be medical guidance. You need to take this with a grain of salt. Go speak to your clinical provider. If you don't have a clinical provider, make it a priority to find one who's going to actually take the time to dig into your health and be proactive about it. I think the problem with, again, healthcare today is that we live in a payer model where the person who's in charge is your insurer. If your insurance doesn't like something, they're not going to pay for it. And therefore, you're not going to do it because you don't want to pay out of pocket. So there needs to be sort of a cultural shift around how we pay for healthcare and how we invest our dollars differently to focus on minimizing the risk of disease, which is where healthcare goes out of control in terms of costs. And I think, unfortunately, we're still, a while away from insurance catching up, but we as consumers can take action. It's just a matter of not necessarily succumbing to every marketing trend out there.
You should be the president of the United States of America.
I needed you to come here because I knew he was going to be obsessed with this. It's such an interesting thing. And when you start thinking big picture, you realize this is very important in living your healthiest, happiest life. I have a random question. How do you do this with kids? Like,
you mean live a lifestyle of?
No, first of all, we'll get to that in a second. But like, are you starting your kids young and like looking at their health and like a long life for them? Because
that's such a funny question. I mean, it's not a funny question, but it is for me a funny question because I'm at a point with my kids where like whatever they eat, I'm thrilled.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly my son because he's a picky eater. Mm-hmm. So like the moment I see food go into his mouth, it's like a sense of relief. My husband and I always joke,
You'll
like,
take it.
He like the second we see him like put something in his mouth, it's like,
oh my God,
something.
That's so funny.
So I do think about making sure that he's getting enough protein, enough healthy carbs, and enough fiber. I don't so much there's no candy in my house. There's limited cookies. Like even cookies, he now like says the word cookie.
It's so
and I'm like,
cute.
Oh my God,
Juliet loves cookies.
Yeah,
but by the way, she
it
doesn't know what a cookie is. So sometimes I'll give her like little crackers and she thinks it's a cookie. So cookie. And I'm like,
so cute.
It's so cute.
He loves cottage cheese. He loves Greek yogurt. He doesn't love eggs, but I sneak it into his cottage cheese. He loves bread and almond butter. Like I don't just give him even banana. Like I won't just give him a banana without almond butter. Like I really try to give him.
She doesn't like almond butter.
Peanut butter?
No, she doesn't like any of the butters. Any of those peanut butter, almond butter, the nut butter. She doesn't like the nut butters.
Okay, well there are other ways.
But interesting. Like
does she like chocolate?
Yeah.
So if you put cacao powder in almond butter, it makes it taste like cacao. And now she's older than 1, so you can add a little bit of maple syrup or honey, and it cuts the flavor of the nuttiness.
So like, what's the youngest age someone should start? It tastes
like Nutella.
What's the youngest age?
You should have a educational channel for teaching parents how to give their kids the best nutrition.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's
if you don't
we did start a podcast. It's called Get Well Better, but it's not geared towards kids. It's obviously much more geared towards adults. But I do believe that when it comes to kids, like it's the same thing that you would feed yourself. It should be. Like as long as you, as a parent,
this is not common knowledge. I don't know to put almond butter with my banana.
Right, so that's why
I have a banana. I think I'm eating healthy. I run out the door. I never grabbed almond butter with it.
I know, but that's why it's just as important to educate parents as it is to educate parents about their kids.
Right.
So the bottom line is it's extremely important for every single person, and hopefully, I mean, having the means to do this is not easy, but to find a way to get what's your recipe for success. Like somehow get a blood panel and ask a professional and have them look at what you need to be at your optimal health.
Yeah. So going back to the kids thing, I'm not recommending that people do comprehensive lab work on their children. All I was saying is more if you're gonna think about like how to create a balanced meal for your child, make sure that if you're giving them fruit as an example, fruit is still sugar, even though it's healthy. There's a lot of nutritional value in fruit, but you do still have to recognize that there's a high sugar content. So if you don't couple it with yogurt, Greek yogurt, or almond butter, or some other form of fat and protein, it's going to spike your kid's blood sugar. And so then they're going to be on a huge high, and then they're going to crash, and it could potentially affect their nap, right? So like these are things that as parents we think a lot about, because a 2-hour nap is like golden. So how do we make sure that they get that 2-hour nap is if they have a well-balanced meal before they go to sleep.
Did you learn any of this in high school? Because I didn't learn any of this in high school.
No, we didn't learn this
about
in high
taxes.
school.
We didn't learn about nutrition.
So
I don't know
sad.
what the heck they were teaching us. Like George Washington.
So can I just ask, like, how you in your life, you have 2 kids, and I know you have your journey of having your kids because it was not in vitro, it's surrogacy, which is amazing to have these ways of doing it.
Very, very.
And so you have 2 kids under the age of 2.
Mm-hmm.
What is their age gap?
Their age gap is 10 months. So one's about to turn 2 and one just turned 1.
So cute. So you've got 2 kids and you're running this business. How do you do it? How do you do it when you're a boss woman and just balancing time for yourself, with your husband, with your friends, with your kids, with your business?
I mean, I can't say that I'm necessarily doing a great job. I don't know if my husband would say that I'm like the best wife, but
we forget about it.
And I don't know if my son would necessarily say I'm the best mom.
No, you are.
But I do the best that I can. I would say that like what I'm trying to do is just be really efficient with my time. I wake up at 5:45. I work out at 6. I get ready from like 6:45 to 7. 7, I'm making them their breakfast. I don't know why I choose to make their breakfast, but I do, even though I have a live-in nanny. Thank God. But I do enjoy making them their breakfast. They wake up at 7-ish, feed them their breakfast, take them to school, go to work, come home by 6. And like, I'm really efficient with my day. Like I know a lot of people work like many hours of the day, but if you actually ask yourself how many of those hours are productive hours, it's probably not the entire time that you are in the office. I really strive to make every hour that I'm in my office or even working from home productive. And I do the nighttime routine with my kids, and then I have a nice dinner at home with my husband. Which I don't cook, by the way. I do have a live-in nanny. So like that really makes a huge difference in terms of our quality of life. And again, like I recognize it's a luxury that a lot of people can't afford or don't want to necessarily invest in, but it is what we've decided to do and what we're fortunate to do. And then I do spend a few hours, maybe like an hour and a half to 2 hours going back on my computer to address anything that like from the hours of like 5:30 to 7:30, I wasn't able to get to. And I make sure that I'm in bed by 9:30. And like usually my husband and I will watch like an hour of TV. So I'm actually going to sleep at 10:30. I can't say I subscribe to the whole like technology. Like that's a compromise that I'm willing to make because I don't feel like I'm waking up so tired, right? Like I feel great in the morning. So it's not like a sacrifice that I need to make. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Bravo.
That truly sounds fabulous. What happens if you go out though?
So I do go out. I do go out.
What if you go out and have your little martinis, your dirty martini?
So I strive to not have a drink if it's Sunday to Thursday. Thursday, I'll have my first drink if I'm going out, but like I'll think ahead and I'll be like, okay, if I'm going out Thursday, Friday, Saturday, which is the night that actually I want to have a drink. Okay. Sometimes, by the way,
you're picking tonight as your night.
So tonight I'm probably going to have a drink.
Okay.
Tomorrow night I have a date with my husband, and I'm probably not going to have a drink with him, which makes me sad because there's no one I like drinking more than with my husband one-on-one. And there will be weeks where I have 2 drinks, and it's not a big deal. Like it's really not a big deal. I'm just conscious of it. Like I savor my drinks when I have them. Tonight I'll probably go to sleep at like 12:30, and that's okay.
And you can wake up at 5:45?
No. On weekends I do not wake up that hour. I work out on weekends while my kids are napping.
Smart. Okay, so you've got
you'll wake up at 7.
I'll wake up at 7 on Saturday.
You'll start preparing foods. And that's a good strategy.
Wow,
Yeah.
I love it. You, by the way, you're a fantastic mom. You're an amazing wife. You're a businesswoman. Like, bravo to you. You should be so, so, so proud of yourself. And just out of curiosity, because, you know, you've got all of this knowledge now and you're doing all of this, if you were to look back and give your younger self who maybe doesn't have all of this knowledge, like one piece of advice, what would that be?
I actually feel like I wish I could give my new self advice from like my old self.
Interesting.
Which would probably be to like not take things so seriously, right? Like I think I've become so literal, you know, in a lot of ways. And that's sometimes knowledge is power, but it's also when you have a personality like I do, where I'm so motivated and so disciplined, it's really hard to let go and be balanced. Like my goal every single year when I set my goals, it's to be more balanced.
So there's some room.
That makes sense.
There's some
I
room
feel you
for
on that.
leeway. There's like room for leeway. You can have this. I mean, you wake up at 5 a.m. I
5:45,
that's
not 5.
wild.
It's a
Good for
big
you.
difference.
I actually changed my daughter's schedule so I
Snooze,
could wake
no
up.
snoozing.
No snooze. If
my
I
God.
mean, I snooze, but not enough where like I need the snooze. Like I'll stay in bed, but I won't fall back asleep.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So, but there's room for leeway. It's okay to not be perfect. So we've got this place that everyone should go to called the Lanby. She's going to tell us lastly, just like where you guys can find her, but go get this work done. Know the optimal way to live your life and optimal for health. And then don't take it so seriously. Be okay with there being some imperfection to your life. I love
Imperfection is perfection.
I love it.
Does that make sense?
Imperfectly perfect. Perfectly imperfect.
But you gotta have fun.
Yeah.
'cause
Yeah, you
So-
have to have
You don't wanna
fun.
live
So
life
again,
like a
like I
robot.
wish I could take that advice to heart
Sure.
more. It's truly what I work on all the time.
Yeah.
But I generally think that that's the philosophy of the Lanby, is to find your own balance.
I love
Yes.
that. So now that everyone has this fantastic information about you, and I'm like,
You're like
my
such a
brain's-
cheurleader. It's unbelievable.
Because you're
no
really
wonder you're a
cool.
life coach.
Yeah, hello.
You're just
Welcome
giving
to
people
me.
love and confidence.
Welcome to me.
You have to earn her cheerleading.
You're
think she
you're
gives
the
it to
luckiest
everyone.
husband, by the way.
I am.
I mean, to have a wife that just like supports you and loves you and gives you like, that's what every guy's dream is.
Hope I do it
I'm
enough for
very
you.
blessed.
Do I do it enough for you?
Very lucky. And I did choose pretty wisely. Give myself a little bit of credit.
Thank you guys. No, I mean, I should be better with him.
Are you
'Cause-
kidding? I literally can't imagine. If there's one piece of advice that I've gotten, it's just like be complimentary. Like you're so complimentary.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It means a lot. I do.
You're very special.
I do.
I'm very blessed.
Really mean it when I say these things. Like I'm not the type of person just to say it. Like I really, really mean it. I'm so unbelievably impressed and inspired. And you just got new customers, which is so fun. Jonathan's like,
I'm very excited. Thank you.
he's so excited. So please tell everyone where, I know we've said it a few times, but really where they can find you and all of this information about the Lanby.
So hopefully our website is full of good information. It's thelanby.com. We have an Instagram account, the.lanby, which we also share a lot of good health tips. So our goal with the Instagram is to just like make it a little bit more approachable to live a healthy lifestyle and learn. And then we also recently launched a podcast called Get Well Better, which is where we interview experts, specialists, thought leaders in the health and wellness space with the goal of sifting through the noise and helping people take tactical tips around like, okay, there's all this information out there. What do I actually need to do? I think there's so many amazing health and wellness podcasts out there, but so many of them leave people more confused than when they started. So our mission is to break it down into layman's terms and make it easy for you to have real takeaways.
Very
like that.
cool. So website, podcast, Instagram, and go make an appointment at the Lanby. And
Or just even, book a consult call as your first step to learn if this is really the right step for you.
amazing. I love it. Thank you so much. You're the best.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode. We hope you liked it as much as we did. Now go send it to someone who needs to hear it, because we know that dating, relationships, marriage can be tough. But we want to make it less tough. And remember, you're allowed to hate your husband. Whatever you're feeling is allowed. So go send it to a friend, to your sister, your brother, maybe your boyfriend, a husband, whoever needs to hear this, send it to them. And while you're at it, click the follow button, click the review button. Always feel free to reach out if you have any questions. And we're so excited to see you in our next episode.